Hey everybody, welcome back to Record-ology. You know, I love to debunk misinformation, and there is a lot of misinformation that has been floating around in the YouTube verse about suitcase players, Crosleys, Victrolas, a lot of entry-level equipment, and we have talked about that at length, and we've run tests, and it's just been a common topic here on this very proudly entry-level channel where we review everything from the very, very bottom of the line all the way up to some decent mid-grade stuff. And I'm proud that that's, how we've positioned ourselves. Nobody else on YouTube really does that, so I'm thankful for that. But one of the pervasive and persistent bits of misinformation is that all suitcase players are the same. They're all made by Crosley, and they're sold under different brand names, but it's the exact same unit over and over and over again. Well, I just so happen to have amassed a collection of a few of them, 5 to be exact, and I just wanted to compare them side by side. Look at the measurements, look at the features, and really see, are these really all the same unit? You're not going to want to miss this. Okay, so as you can see here, I've got 5 different suitcases. These are all entry-level ceramic models by 5 different companies. So the question is, are they all made by the same company, namely Crosley, or are they truly unique products? Let's go one by one and find out. Let's start with the most evil and subversive company of all, Crosley, and their wicked cruiser. Actually, this was the latest version. We reviewed it not too long ago. It did fantastic. It really, really did. So this one has a shock-mounted mechanism. All these are going to be 3 speeds. They will have different feature sets, though, which is an important part of our discussion. This one has a headphone jack here, on and off, pitch control, and then the 3 functions, including phonograph, Bluetooth in and out. Let's also look at some of the details on the outside, because that's going to play an important part in our discovery process. So we have 2 speakers on the front. We have a hard plastic carrying handle and silver metal components. This one has rubber feet. And on the back, if we look at the back panel, we've got a power supply, an aux in, and obviously the RCA line output. And that's about all there is to that one. Okay, this is the Tantalin suitcase player with a floral vinyl print. And from a physical form factor comparison to the Crosley, it seems about the same. You can see on the back here, this one has a power supply, line outputs. It doesn't have an aux input. And if we look inside, you can see I try to keep my power supplies in the actual device. This one has a slip mat and a shock-mounted mechanism. On the side here, you can see from a feature set standpoint, this one has the TF card, USB card, the screen, and then an on and off headphone jack. So that one definitely has some additional features that the Cruiser didn't have. Okay, this is the Amazon Basics suitcase player. And you'll notice there's no feet on the bottom, so this one kind of slides around. It should have rubber feet. I always want these things to have rubber feet on the back because the hinges protrude, and you want to set a suitcase down like this and it never sits right. It always teeters on that. So somebody needs to invent a suitcase player that has simple feet on the back. It makes even more sense. Well, I guess you should have something here to keep it stable and then something on the back as well. Anyway, this is the Amazon Basics. And if you open that up, there's no branding, which on the lid anyway. So some people would say that's a smart move. Others think it's a missed opportunity. There is branding down here. So this platter looks different. It is shock mounted, but this is a different platter. And we'll compare all this stuff side by side, but I want at the outset to take note of that. This one, line input, Bluetooth, phono mode, selector switch, on and off volume control, and headphone jack. And if we look on the back panel of this one, power supply and line output and some different hinges. I like the sort of brushed antique looking hardware on there. So that's the Amazon Basics. Also, if you ever see a brand on Amazon called Byron Statics, that's an Amazon owned brand as well. Next up, we have the GPO Ambassador turntable. And I like the sort of alligator snake skin touches on the sides there. That's a neat touch. And then the green vinyl wrap there. This one, we got speakers on the sides, so no speakers on the front, like an antique metal finish. Again, the speakers there. On the back panel, we've got an aux input, power input, and an aux out. This one does have feet on the bottom, but these are small. These are rubber too, so that's good. Let's look under the hood, see what we were dealing with. So we do have the branding there, and this is a rigid mechanism, so they've chosen to do that. This comes with one of those slip mats, and it's just unnecessary on this. I mean, it's okay. It's not going to hurt anything, but this mechanism is actually designed from a VTA standpoint for the record to rest right on these rubber nubs. Sometimes when they put these slip mats in there, they'll actually take the rubber nubs out to compensate for the vertical height. This one has both. From a feature set standpoint right here, we've got some display lights that come on and a USB control, a metal-ish knob. I think that's a metal knob. And then some transport controls down there as well for the digital audio player that's built in. So that is the GPO suitcase. And finally, we have the vintage turntable by LP and Number One. One of my absolute favorites because this is my Christmas record player. It is wrapped like a present. This is just a vinyl wrap, metal corner pieces and hinges. We have rubberized feet on the back. There's no back panel. So how does that work? Well, the back panel's on the side, so it's a side panel, and we've got a line input, output, power supply, headphone jack, on and off volume, and the Bluetooth/phono switch. Kind of interesting to have it on the side instead of the back. And then right here we've got the speakers, which are covered with these white plastic grills, and this is a leather wrapped handle. Some of these handles on some of these are rigid plastic. Some of them are a pliable, sort of almost squishy kind of leather wrap. And then if we look under the hood, we've got some really cool branding on the lid, which I like. This mechanism is shock mounted. It's a very basic player. There's no additional controls here because you do have this control here. This particular tone arm assembly isn't the greatest. You lift up the tone arm and it goes super, super high. In fact, I'll show you. So if we watch how high up the tone arm goes. It's just way too high, and it's sticky too. But even with its faults, it's such a cool, fun little player. I love to get this out at Christmas time to play Christmas records on. So we'll actually be featuring this on the channel more. Stacking them up side by side, I want you to pay attention to the dimensions. Like, look how wide the Cruiser is compared to the Amazon Basics unit. This is way thicker, whereas this one and this one are kind of similar. This one's a bit bigger as well. From a physical height standpoint, we'll look at it in a minute. There's some variance there. But in terms of depth, this one's longer. This one's a tad bit longer as well. So the dimensions are different on all of them, one way or another. And from back here as well, you can see some obvious dimensional differences. This one's a bit higher as well. So from a physical build standpoint, they are different. Look how shallow this lid is compared to this lid. Obviously, the speakers on the side, speakers on the front for some models, and even the different hardware on some different models. They're not all the same. They're similar, but they're not identical. This one features a white rigid plastic handle. This one features a gray fabric handle. And this one features a molded plastic handle. So it's rigid. Actually, this one has a little pliability in it too. And then there's these stitches that are on top. And as you can see, these have metal. Similar story over here. This one is molded, actually is the one I was thinking of. Completely rigid plastic. Even these faux stitches on top are molded. And this one has a leather handle with the hardware going over the top as well. And sort of an antique brushed finish. Looking at the buckle design, pay attention to not just the design, but the sort of overall appearance and characteristics. You will see similarities for sure, but you will also see some variance. Pay attention now to this. This one is completely different. Next, let's look at the handle hinges. Look at the tapered edge of the hinge base plate. Placement of screws. This one has screws, whereas this one has a rivet. This one has a completely different base that's not similar to the others. This one has a rectangular base with screws, and this one has an oval base. You may say that's all superficial, but it's important to take note. The speaker grills on these versus the speaker grills on these, and this one's oval, and the cruiser's rectangular. Take note of the back panel and the hinge design as we go up. This one's completely different, the hinges. This one, again, doesn't even have a back panel. Okay, so what's the deal? In actuality, there are at least a handful of different manufacturers in China that make these. And the resellers, companies like Crosley, Victrola, we didn't have a Victrola in here, LP and Number One, et cetera, Amazon, they purchase these in bulk. Sometimes they do input design influence to the manufacturer and they're built to spec. Case in point with the Crosley, that was designed by Crosley and built to their specifications. Sometimes it's an off-the-shelf purchase for certain companies, but what happens is they buy them in bulk, they brand them, and then they resell them. So the brands that we know, like Victrola, Crosley, and others, are resellers. They're not manufacturers. Crosley doesn't manufacture any of these. So the different manufacturers often source similar parts, such as the Skywind type of mechanism, which is actually an old BSR design from the 80s. Check out my colleague Via Westlive's video on that topic. So they can spec it out with the different parts and the different feature sets, and they can design different aspects of it as well. So there are different components. These are often referred to as Skywind mechanisms. Skywind is one of the companies that makes this part as an off-the-shelf part for resellers or manufacturers of these products to put together into their finished record players. So now we know they are not all the same. But what do they sound like in comparison to one another? Not very often that you get 5 of these in one room. So why don't we play a record and play the same song on every unit, and we'll listen ambiently in the room to the sound quality and decide for ourselves which ones sound better than others. I have a feeling that the Crosley latest gen version over there is going to sound the best. We've already demoed that. Everybody was blown away, including myself, by the sound quality. But let's go through them all and just do a sound comparison as is. So as you can hear, there is a vast difference between the Crosley and the other ones. It's definitely a lot better, this particular latest version. But I want to sort of forestall the comment that I will inevitably get that says, why don't they just put a magnetic cartridge in here? I asked that question to one of these companies years ago, and they said because the people that are buying these record players don't know that they're going to buy that record player when they wake up that day. It's an impulse purchase. And for the newbie, the beginner, the impulse buyer, if they were to put a magnetic cartridge on there, they'd be like, okay, so what? It's not a selling point for somebody who doesn't know what the benefit is of that. And if you like the idea of a suitcase, but you want a magnetic cartridge, they have those. I want to show you one of mine. This on the left is my Crosley Anthology. It's either an anthology or a keepsake. I can't remember which. In comparison to the Cruiser, you can see it's much bigger. The ones with magnetic cartridges seem to be that way, but look how much more speaker you get. This is designed to take that suitcase convenience, everything all in one, to the next level in terms of sound quality. So where does that leave us? You know, I have always argued for the suitcase player that it has a place in this community. I still think that if it weren't for the suitcase player, that we would not be experiencing the vinyl revival that we are today. You wouldn't be able to get records at Best Buy, Walmart, and Target, all those fun exclusive editions. So I think they play an important part. I think they're akin to the instant camera, like the not even just like a Polaroid, but like the throwaway cameras of old. Remember 35 millimeter disposable cameras? It was to get some pictures, to get you started, and if you really wanted to make a thing in photography, you could move on to higher equipment. But they always had a place, and I think that these suitcase players do as well. I know it's not high fidelity, super top of the line sound, and in some cases it's not even good sound. It's just sound, but I still think it plays an important role for kids, for people that have a very fleeting or minimal interest in records. It gets them in the door, and we've seen it time and time again. People say, I started with a cruiser and now I've got, you know, some fancy thing. So let's not, you know, forget that fact. Also, to sort of, you know, finish this off and tie a bow on it, clearly these are different units made by different companies. All right, my friends, and that's going to do it. I hope that was entertaining. Been looking forward to doing this show for a while, so I hope that it was fun for you to watch. If you did like it, thumbs up, please. Consider subscribing. And also check out my wife's channel, Rain's Place, where she is doing daily vlog content for Christmas. It's called Vlogmas, and we go to all kinds of events and things that take you guys along. It's already 5 videos in. Cannot believe how fast this month is going. Anyway, my friends, that's going to do it for today. Happy record hunting, and we'll see you next time.